Hello, this is Ed Moran coming to you from Visionary AI Partners. Today we are speaking with Brett Tonks. He is the president of Kane Company. It's a property management industrial space company. You've been around, you particular, a long time, over 20 years. I'd love to hear all about how you came into the business and where you are today.
Great. Thanks, Ed. It's good to be here
Welcome.
with you today. I started out, I got out of college and I thought I wanted to be a swim coach. So, I was coaching swimming and was the full-time assistant swim coach at Virginia Tech. And after a couple of years, I said, well, maybe I want to be a college athletic director. And if I'm going to do that, I should know something about business. So I got a business degree, and like education does, I started to think, well, maybe there's a bigger world out there. But I didn't know what I wanted to do because I didn't have any business experience. So I went into banking, and I figured I can see a lot of different industries, figure out where I want to gravitate. Did rotations through a lot of different industry groups at a commercial bank in Boston, and ended up really, finding a love of real estate. So spent a couple of years with their captive commercial mortgage banker at that bank, and then felt like I wanted to be on the principal side of the business, so I just started working my way onto the other side of the business. I worked for an investment and development group in Norfolk, Virginia called Harbor Group International.
Okay.
Went into more institutional work for TIAA CREF, but on the lending side. That was right around the time where the Great Recession set in, so I pulled up. We were in Charlotte at the time, pulled up stakes, came back to Boston, and got a job with a company that was partners with Colony Capital. Spent 15 years there, starting running a regular way fund business out of Boston, and then ultimately ended up running debt capital markets for the mothership, which at peak was $58 billion of assets all over the world. We merged that business with Digital Bridge, which was a digital infrastructure operator out of Boca Raton, Florida. As that business became more and more geared toward digital infrastructure, as much as I'm a finance nerd, I'm a real estate nerd first and foremost, and wanted to get back to my roots, get back to the real bricks and mortar of the real estate business, and met up with Michael Kane and John Kane, brothers here in Portsmouth, and they built this great little portfolio. And they said to me, "Look, we're still blowing and going, we're doing deals." But we're not very good at, and we're interested in running a business. We'd love to have you come help. And so that's what we did. So, so I've been here 3.5 years, and, we've kind of re-geared the organization a little bit, try to be more efficient, more effective, access different sources of capital, be more thoughtful about our management practices, and, see if we can grow and scale from here.
Fantastic. That's quite the story from sports to real estate. Have you always been in the Portsmouth, New Hampshire area, or is that where you're from? Or
after grad school, I chased a girl who went to Providence College, and all her friends, she was in grad school at Virginia Tech, but all her friends were in Greater Boston. So I chased her to Boston, and we have 3 kids, and been married 23 years now. So
well, congratulations. All girls, you said?
Yeah. Well, I'm like 20 minutes from Portsmouth. I live just over the border in Massachusetts because I love paying state income tax.
All right. Your business today, you said you guys have been going, you hooked up with Michael and John Kane about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So where has the business gone from like when you first came in to right now?
So the core portfolio is probably close to what it was as far as our commercial business. So we've acquired probably 5 properties since I joined. It's been, as the last few years in real estate have been weird. So we've made some good sharpshooter type acquisitions that have been pretty great, and we've started a multifamily development business. We managed to take 2 properties that we own and get one fully rezoned as part of a city master plan where we thought it was going to be more of an industrial development. And now we will build, phase 1 will be 250 units and fully built out could be, up to 1,000 units of multifamily housing. And then we got an overlay district on an office park that we own to allow housing in and around the commercial buildings in that development. So that'll be something of a pioneering type project. You hear a lot about mixed use, but I think building housing around an operating office like industrial park is something that's a little different, and we're working with urban planners and really trying to think through how that fits together in a way that creates a really durable community. And we're pretty excited about that. And then we acquired a property that had gone net lease to Bed Bath and Beyond. It was a combination Christmas tree shops and Bed Bath and Beyond. Acquired that and re-permitted, got everything entitled to do probably about 350 units as of right there. So so all told, we from the time I came in, we're now sitting on roughly 2,500 unit pipeline of multifamily that we'll build out over the next 7 to 10 years.
Do you feel that's where you're trending? Is that where your market is going?
I mean, I think there's a huge need for that right now. I mean, Seacoast, New Hampshire is in the middle of certainly a housing crisis, but that housing crisis is born of a growing business community that continues to find new opportunities. And it's 45 miles from Boston. It certainly kites off the macro trends that Boston has, but it's got its own unique set of demand drivers that are really pushing that market forward. And a lot of the seeds that were planted 20 years ago with the 101, which is an east-west freeway in New Hampshire, have all started to really come to fruition, where there's a lot of reasons why people want to be in Seacoast, New Hampshire. It's a great place to live and work. A lot of industry that's already embedded there that's unique. So I think the housing comes from a business community that's really growing and taking off. So the Kane Company historically has always been somewhat agnostic as to product type. They've sort of just gone where the opportunity is. And there's been great opportunity in commercial, but all of a sudden this housing shortage creates an opportunity to go there. So we're not slowing down our commercial business. I think the two go hand in hand, where bring in investors that want to come into multifamily, we get them interested in our commercial stuff and vice versa. And the story sort of hangs together as macroeconomic why you want to be in this market. We don't offer geographic diversification in the way that we're investing right now, but we certainly offer product type in a geography that's got a pretty compelling and deep economic story to tell.
That's fantastic. That's definitely how you've moved forward with this and kind of going with the trend. Is seems like it's been a very positive move for you guys.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's really creates a ton of opportunity, and just being in that extra product type just helps you look at all the opportunities a little bit differently.
I'm hearing a lot about regulations. How are those in your area, like dealing with the regulations and the different codes and stuff like that? I was hearing from some of the other people I talk to regularly that in some areas it's become, quite unbearable. How is it in your area?
I mean, look, everywhere is hard, right? I mean, anything that I say from here on out is through that lens, and that's somewhat of the nature of being a real estate developer, right? It's you just keep beating your head against the wall, and the guy with the most tolerance for pain, generally wins. So that's part of it. I would say, I mean, New Hampshire's unique in that, I mean, the state motto is live free or die, right? So there is a structural element to that motto that makes a lot of sense, where there's not a strong state control, right? There's certain things that the state does, but generally the state tries to be very hands-off and leave it to municipalities. Now, Portsmouth itself is as blue as they come. So trying to get through planning boards and conservation commissions and all that is really, really difficult.
I was going to ask, are the like cities like Portsmouth, but are the maybe smaller towns not as bad and more welcoming, or are you finding it just across the board?
Yeah, I think there's a mixed bag, right? I mean, Portsmouth is exceedingly difficult, but at the same time, we've worked really hard on those relationships and tried to really understand the city government. I mean, we were involved in a development there, and it's pretty well known locally, that ended with us suing the city and the city suing us. So
Yeah,
like not great. But out of that came, some really great collaboration on, hey, we've got a housing crisis. We're one of the largest landlords and property owners in the city. And how do we work together to solve this? Let's put
Right.
aside, the things that have happened before and learn from them and figure out together how to enhance the city. And I think really taking that approach has opened a lot of doors, right? We settled our lawsuit in a way that was a win-win. It gave us a development to develop that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And it's going to give the city almost 1,000 units of housing that they wouldn't have had, and that adds to the tax base. It adds to the dynamism of the community. So it's, really getting in and understanding, for me, understanding what the community is trying to accomplish. What are, not only the residents and the stakeholders of the community, but what are the politicians trying to get done? And how do you don't want to pander to it, but at the same time, like, how do you work together to say, look, let's attack this in a way that everybody can win? It's not a zero-sum game. And too many developers are that, right? I mean, you go to these planning board meetings, you go to the town council meetings, and you don't hear from, the couple thousand residents that love what you're doing. You hear from the 10 residents that hate what you're doing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so there's always that element to it. And I think, if I don't want to oversimplify it, because it is hard, but it's also like, being stayed and controlled and listening to what people have to say, explaining why you're doing things the way you're doing them. You're never going to make everybody happy, but if you can really focus on key fundamentals, it's brute force. You eventually get there.
It's a little give and take, and you definitely have to keep your even keel, because I could see it could really drive you nuts per se sometimes.
No, I mean, it's, we were, and I won't even name the municipality, but like, we had this whole, entrance scheme for development, and they asked us to make, like, 4 or 5 different changes to it. So we made the changes. We came back into the next meeting, and, everybody loves them. And then all of a sudden we've got, Public Works is upset because they don't know how they're going to turn their snowplow around in the very feature that the planning board asked us to add. Like, oh my God, what are we doing here? But that's what it is. It's you just have to keep going and working with everybody, and the minute you get rattled, you lose. It's you gotta just steady
Yeah.
Eddie, steady Eddie.
Pick yourself up and keep going. How many employees do you guys have?
So we have about 30 employees, and we're vertically integrated, management, investment, development, all that. So it's
That was
it's
my
accounting.
next question. Do you have a lot of maintenance or?
Yeah. I mean, we do all our, we do all the property and facilities management ourselves. Now, when I say ourselves, right, like, we're not doing the landscaping. We've got contractors for that. We do a
Correct.
limited amount of plowing. We've got guys plowing, I mean, but we've got a staff of 6 facilities guys. And then we've got what I call an in-house general contractor. So we can go and we can self-perform on jobs within our portfolio and hire subs and all that. And for bigger jobs, we'll go out and hire a third-party GC. But if I'm building out a 10,000 square foot office space and, moving offices around and doing all that, I'll do that with my in-house guys.
And what's your procedures? How's your, I guess, communication with the clients, and how, if there's something wrong or there's an issue, how do you deal with that?
We've got a portal, a tenant portal that allows us to, to have the tenants just like log in a maintenance request, right? They can just log in. Here's what we need done. It immediately generates a work order for our guys. They have an iPad that they carry around. It doles it out to the right guy. If he can't handle it, it'll go to somebody else. They complete the repair, log it in. It generates an invoice. Whether it's a repair that's the tenant's responsibility because it's, within their space under the lease that they pay for, it'll generate the invoice, or it'll generate an invoice that gets paid by the property and the landlord entity if that's where it goes. So it's pretty seamless. I think, what we're in that area, what we're trying to focus on is triaging those, right? Because stuff comes in and there's an algorithm to prioritize, requests.
Right.
But how do you deal with, something that's lagging and, there's a weekly meeting that we sit down and we kind of go through the queue and, we'll
Right.
do a postmortem on things that go along and all that. But, I think there's got to be a more efficient way of doing that other than every week, everybody's sitting in a room for an hour and talking through all that. But, at the same
Okay.
time, good stuff come out of those meetings.
And what would you say right now in your with what you guys do? What is your biggest issue or problem that you have to your biggest headache, I guess I would say, and how you're dealing with it?
And are you talking about on the facilities and maintenance stuff?
Anything. What's your biggest? I know you've explained to me the some of that stuff. Maybe you could go into a little bit more detail, and then if there is something bigger, you could talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, the biggest challenge I think that we have as an organization is there's this element where we're a matrix organization, right? Like, okay, I'm the president of the company, but if we're talking about 123 Main Street, right, the asset manager is the CEO of that property, right? So I can be the president of the company all I want, but I just use random names, But Jane knows exactly what is going on at 123 Main Street, and it is her job to know what's going on at 123 Main Street. So,
Okay.
and we've tried to operate that way, but then there's also this energy around most real estate people are doers, right? Like we go out, where do we have to do, right? It's we pick up a shovel where we have to pick up a shovel, but that gets us tangled, right? We're negotiating a lease, and Michael Kane will pick up the phone and call the tenant and be like, "What are we doing? Where are we? How do we get this done?" Well, meanwhile, Jane is 3/4 of the way down the field with that, and Michael's not informed on it, and now we've sort of reset the goal line a little bit, and things kind of go crazy, right? And that's happening everywhere, right? It's when a facilities guy walks into a tenant's office and the office manager who's developed a really good relationship with is like, "Hey, we need this fixed." And meanwhile, one of our other facilities guys is already working on it because it's gone through the system that way. So it's like, to me, the biggest challenge that we have is that like constant need to just check in with ourselves and what's going on with this and how are we addressing these issues. And we do a really good job of it. Like we're really communicative. Everybody's means well and really does a great job. But still, there's just there's always cracks, right? It's a human system, and
Yeah.
I can come up with the best like pipeline management tool I want to come up with, but it's only as good as the last data that somebody put into it. It's did Jane plug in that she asked Bob, the facilities guy, to fix that window? And if she didn't, nobody knows about it. So how do you bring all those things together in a more efficient way? We spend an inordinate amount of time connecting those dots. And to me, some of it's cultural, right? Some of it's just how do we as an organization believe in that matrix organization? How do we make sure that we're talking to people? But then how do I also put tools in my people's hands to make sure that those things are just happening regular way?
Right. Communication is really big in our industry here. It sounds like that is one of your major issues. Is that, or is there another big thing you wanted to talk about on?
I mean, I think that's our biggest issue, right? I mean, I really do. I mean, everything's an offshoot of that, right? It's like if I can talk about the pain in the leasing program, right? Like okay, how do we go from a signed LOI to a signed lease and driving the terms of leases? Like it is how is my general counsel communicating with outside counsel, communicating with the person who's doing the deal, communicating with me? Like it all kind of goes back to that.
Are
And
you coming across any fraud?
we've done pretty well with that. I mean, I think we've got tight controls in place. We have a good IT manager that deals with like tests the team all the time on phishing scams and all the different new ways that people are trying to deal with fraud. I mean, we've really been pretty lucky with that.
Even like one of the, I was talking to somebody last week. Literally an ID. If they didn't double check the ID, it was all legit except for the picture. And so, and then when they looked at, and then they went back, and then they found out all that once they like ID'd the person in the picture, and then they found out, their credit score, and they owed this other place money, and I was like amazing how elaborate they were.
Yeah, it's really shocking what they can do now. I mean, we had one of our investors was telling me a story where he works with a nonprofit. They wired like $50,000. It was gone. Like they just, through one of these phishing scams. It was like
Yeah.
unbelievable that something like that can happen. And it's just, but it's like the little blocking and tackling stuff, right? Like you don't send a wire without calling and verbally verifying. Like whether or not I've wired this counterparty 200 times, every time you pick up the phone, you verify the wiring instructions,
Yeah.
and it's the stuff that keeps me up at night, but it's the stuff that we talk about a lot, right? It's just constantly talking about it, constantly being vigilant on it. Like, our IT guy sends out, these tests and, send a report back. We had 7 people clicked on the link. Like it had all the markers, like you're not supposed to click on the link, and 7 people clicked on it.
Yeah.
And like, so but it's a great chance, when nobody clicks on it, like it's, we ring the bell, like it's a big deal. So people start to take it personally.
So what's going really well for you guys right now that you could talk about to tell other people that something that you guys you really something positive?
I'm dying to tell you like some big technology win or some special sauce capital that we have that like is really making us better. But what I would say is the biggest thing that's changed over the last 3 years at the Kane Company is I've really worked to try to empower people and give them a sense of like go and do. And that has made such a tremendous difference in our organization. Like,
Yeah.
look, I would, and I say this all the time, two basic tenets, right? I would much rather tell you to slow down than feel like I'm dragging you to the starting line. Like go, and I'll tell you if you're going too fast. Like, don't worry about that. That's fine. And then the other thing is, like, I've told people, manage the good news, right? Something good happens, you figure out the best time to tell me that, and we can celebrate the right way. But when something bad happens, like run down the hall with your hair on fire screaming, and help will be there. And I think those couple tenets together have really made people feel empowered, right? We've tried to set things up so that, people know what they can do and how far they can go. And, just as an example, like when I have an asset manager negotiating a lease, I have them come in early to sort of get approved terms that would work, right? And now they're out in the market as a principal, right? They're talking to the broker and they know, hey, I can make this deal down to 1650, right? We went with an opening bid of 18, but I know if I sign the deal I can sign the deal at 1650 and I'm fine. And obviously there's a lot of other terms, but keep it simple. That has been really powerful. So all of a sudden when they're facing a broker, the broker's like, oh, the tenant wants me to go at 1675. Jane can say, if you can deliver 1675, we're done. The broker says, well, don't you need to go talk to anybody? No, I'm the decision maker. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. And even if he comes back at 1665, they can still make the deal. Right. But if Jane every time comes back at 1650, then I know we need to work on Jane's closing skills a little bit. If Jane keeps coming in at 1725 when she can go to 1650, like, hey, she's doing awesome. But if she's always at the low, then we'll figure out how to help her close a little better. Okay. And just that sense of empowerment. Like you can pay people, and yes, people want to be paid well, but like people are motivated by money. That's not what like really gets them going, right? You give them a big check and they're happy until 3 days later. And it's
short-lived.
But like that, like, hey, I closed this deal. I did better than the mark. We can celebrate that. People can own those wins.
That's
and we're trying to really think about where we can create that for everybody in the organization, right? That's the example of somebody closing a lease. But what's the equivalent of that for a maintenance guy, right? Like, hey, it's a $150 repair. I don't need to go ask somebody's permission. I'm just going to do it. It works. It's fine. And the more of that we can do, and I've challenged my people to be like, look, come back to me with a framework of where you want operating freedom, and we'll figure out how to create that for you. And it makes my job easier because everybody's not running into my office for everything, and it creates a lot more pride. And then if they're struggling, it's not coming into my office and like dumping a big pile of problems on my desk. It's like, hey, I've wrestled with this. Here's the best solution I can come up with, and it's still not getting it done. Can you help me? That's a lot easier to help somebody who's already wrestled with the problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A couple more questions. Where do you guys envision yourself the rest of this year and into next year, the next 6 to 12 months? Where is the Kane Company going?
I mean, we're really thinking. I mean, look, I can talk to you like a pure real estate deal guy, and we want to get 2 projects out of the ground. We like to we've got three or 4 deals in the pipeline that we're excited about that we'd like to execute on, bring in some new
No, but
capital.
what you just talked about, like that, and like, because that's really, I think that's really the heart of you guys, and it doesn't always have to be like how many deals and stuff like that.
Right. No, that's exactly right. I mean, honestly, I think that's one of the biggest challenges of real estate companies, right? Is you default into deal mode all the time, and you forget about running the company. And I think it's a problem throughout my career. I've seen that problem in real estate companies that are growing. It's just people go to where they find comfort, which is the deal side rather than the operational side. And for us, it's really about there's this for 20 years, right? We've been talking about prop tech and all the technology coming into the space, but there's still like a lot of core things that we still do the same basic way we were doing them 20 years ago. That, whether it's running pro formas, whether it's how we track our maintenance logs, it's all not that terribly much evolved considering where technology has come. And, even that conversation is different today than it was 3 years ago with the advent of AI. Absolutely. So, to me, and look, over time, and this is a very long-winded answer to your question. So
that's
I apologize. Right. But we need to really think about that. And throughout my career, you buy the next exciting software package and you think that's going to solve all your problems, and it's a nightmare. But it's because you're sort of thinking that the software is going to solve your problem. And it's what I've learned is you've really got to change the way you do business and fit the software into it, right? And the software can help dictate what that looks like, but you've got to change your behavior. And I feel like there's a suite of tools now out there, whether you patch together a bunch of tools, whether you purpose build for yourself, whatever it is, but you've got to be doing that alongside thinking about how you operate. So I think for us, the next 6 to 12 months, that's a big part of the focus is like, all right, I don't want to tear down the entrepreneurial roots of the company. I don't want to get in the way of the empowerment of individuals that we have going on within the organization. But other than that, nothing's off limits. Like, how do we approve leases? How do we, work our way through our pipeline? How do we track vacant space? Like, that's all open. Nothing's off limits as far as what we can change and fix and grow and address.
Awesome. That's a lot of good information. I just wanted to ask you, so what would you tell your 20 years ago self coming forward, getting into this industry? How would you tell, in other words, not necessarily you, but a new person coming into the property management?
I mean, learn everything you can about the fundamentals, right? Like early in your career, everybody's in a hurry to, invest in real estate, to be underwriting, to do the capital side, and that's sexy. Know the bricks and mortar, right? Every little bit of it. Understand roof systems, understand HVAC, understand why and how tenants are using spaces. What are the attributes of different industrial buildings that are going to apply to different types of tenants in different kinds of industries. Like, really understand that stuff as early as you can in your career, because the rest will all come. And I think there's too many people running around that, because they can run an Excel spreadsheet doesn't mean they really understand the business. And it is a business of people, it is a business of personality, it is a business of contracts. And if you can understand what drives those things, you will be so far ahead of the game. It's not even funny. And that's kind of how we treat our young people. Like, just get in, get your hands dirty, understand it, and then you can build on top of it because it's second nature.
Me and you would say, "Oh, it's old school. Get in there and get in there," but the truth is, today's old school. If you want to get, understand a business, and that is some very good information, Brett. I really appreciate it. Your time today. I would also want to give you the floor right now. If you guys have anything to promote, floor is yours.
No, listen. We are, always looking for new investors, and people want to hear our stories. So, always happy to talk about that stuff. I dabble in, a number of different things. Like, I'm an advisor on this little fledgling blockchain company that's trying to figure out how to, raise real, fund style capital for real estate, through the crypto space. That stuff's interesting. Who knows if these guys are onto something that works or not. But there's just so much interesting out in the world right now. And real estate has always found a way to bring, it's a capital hungry business, right? So real estate has always found a way to be on the forefront of new investment technologies, right? Whether it's syndications, REITs, whatever it is, real estate has found a way to bring in new forms of capital. So there's so much out there to be excited about. Among those who are excited.
Yeah, this is a great time. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's my age or I'm excited though. Like what's happening right now, just like everything, real estate, like I just it's an exciting time. And then you bring in AI, amazing. Thank you so much.